Hey everyone, Mitch coming in from the Commander Score Studio. Welcome to the show. So it finally happened. Oh my goodness, this card. Okay. So when spoiler season happens, I don't know if you're like me and you just keep clicking refresh all the time on the spoilers and you're like, come on, no new ones. Come on, no new ones. Come on. And then all of a sudden it pops up and you're like, I've been waiting for this. This is the one that I've been waiting for all spoiler season. Let's jump into that one. And more like Breakform Harvester, a 2/3 artifact creature shapeshifter for 3 mana with Changeling. So this can technically fit in any deck out there, even though it looks like a squirrel. It's technically every kind of creature type. So this is also a vampire. Cool. I guess because it changes around. It's like wood. Cool. It's like, okay, now I'm a vampire made of wood. Anyways, with reach, pay 2, put target card from your graveyard at the bottom of your library. This, I would say, is more for specific commander decks that absolutely love that kind of thing. Gosh, Grenzo, Dungeon Warder, there you go. Outside of that, very specific. Next up, Bonecash Overseer, a 1/1 Squirrel Warlock for a single black mana. Tap, pay 1 life, draw a card. Activate only if 3 or more cards left your graveyard this turn, or if you've sacrificed a food this turn. Basically, have you foraged? Cool. If not, no. That being said, there are other ways to get things out of your graveyard. So if you have like a graveyard-centric deck that works on getting things in your graveyard, out of your graveyard, maybe like reanimation, though that would take quite a bit. Maybe like some escape cards, that kind of thing as well. Or you had to say food deck, could be a very good low-the-ground draw engine for you. Very cool. Next up, Conduct Electricity. A instant for 5 mana in red. 6 damage to our creature, 2 damage up to 1 target creature token. Limited. Next up, Do Drop Cure, a sorcery for 3 mana. Again, sorcery speed. That's okay, though. Let's see what we got. Gift a card. So give your opponent a gift if you want to, which would be a card. Return to 2 target creature cards, each with mana value 2 or less. Your graveyard to the battlefield. If you give us promise instead, return to 3 target creature cards instead. So, I mean, same requirements. I probably should have read that whole thing, but yeah. Do you have small creatures in your deck? Cool, this is reanimate 2 of them, which is pretty good for 3 mana. And again, if you are willing to make a deal with an opponent and say like, hey, yeah, I'll give you a card, you do something for me, awesome, and I also get something out of this by getting something else back, great. So, yeah, like, yes, Aristocrat style deck could utilize this kind of a card because, yeah, reanimating 3 things for just 3 mana, that's really, really, really good. 3 mana and giving an opponent a card, or 2, you know, and not. Yeah, it seems really good for those kinds of decks. So if you have a low-the-ground kind of deck, make sure you're considering that. I guess low-the-ground tribes as well, like, you know, elves, etc. Cool. Next up, Dire Sight. Cool art. Sorcery with 3 mana in black, surveil 2, then draw 2 cards, you lose 2 life. Okay, so apparently we're getting more like Read the Bones type things. Now, that sees a lot of play. This will also see a ton of play as well, I would assume. I mean, Surveil typically is just straight up better than Scry for the vast majority of decks out there. Being able to get things in your graveyard can definitely help with certain strategies out there. And yeah, being able to dig down in your deck first, drawing 2 cards as well. 2 cards for 2 life, not a big deal at all. So yeah, a good amount of card selection and card advantage built into here. I can see this one seeing a lot of play out there. Might be one of the most popular commons from the set, if not the most popular one. Moving on. Feather of Flight. What an adorable, it's like, I'm fly. Okay, anyways. Enchantment Aura with Flash. Enchant creature for 2 mana in white. When enters, draw a card. Enchant creature gets +1/+0 and has flying. Yeah, I mean, lower to the ground auras like this one definitely have a place in certain type of strategies, like Enchantress type strategies that like cantripping auras or aura-specific decks. Yeah, I mean, if you like those kind of cards, if you like that kind of a deck, this is for you. I'd say that this isn't just your typical, like, oh, I really like my commander to have flying. In that case, probably use an equipment because they stick around longer. So, then moving on. Next up, Finch Formation. A Bird Scout, 2/2 for 3 mana in blue. Offspring 3. So again, you pay that extra 3 mana, it's basically kicker. You get an extra token copy of this. That's an exact copy, except it's just a 1/1. Flying, when this creature enters, target creature control gains flying till turn. Probably a more limited thing. I mean, maybe in like a bird deck, potentially, but you probably have a lot of flyers in that deck. Maybe. Moving on. Hired Claw. Thank you, MTG Goldfish, for the translated version of this one. A 1/2 Lizard Mercenary for a single red mana. Whenever you attack with 1 or more lizards, Hired Claw deals 1 damage to target opponent. By paying 1 a red, you put a counter on Hired Claw. Active if an opponent has lost life this turn only once per turn. Seems very specific. Seems like more of a limited thing. Again, one or more lizards. So this doesn't even like, if it was all lizards, yeah, you could say like, okay, like Lord's Tribal, those kinds of decks. But like, this is just like, oh, I attacked with 10 lizards. Ping for 1. Seems kind of weak. And yeah, also getting counters on it, that seems kind of slow as well. It definitely seems like more of a limited card that can like build over time. Next up, Hiveback Wolverine, 5/4 Elemental Wolverine for 5 mana in green. Enters, choose 1. Counter on target creature control. Fight target creature token, specifically. Destroy target artifact or enchantment. This could have been like a new Acidic slime kind of acidic slime. That'd be a funny like unsaid card. Acidic slime, and it's just acidic slime, but it's acidic. Yeah, no, this could have been another one of those. It's definitely weaker than it. Like, it's a 5/4, sure, okay. You can also make it a 6/4 technically, which is ironic. They're like, it's a 6/4 for 5 mana. It does all these other things, and it's not, you know, that good, or 6/5. But yeah, like, Acidic Slime gives you the option to destroy a land, which is not always used, obviously, but it's nice to have that option. It does have Death Touch, too. This fighting a creature token, like, if it... I mean, like, destroy artifact or enchantment. There are creature tokens in Magic, obviously, but typically don't care about taking those out most of the time. It's like, it's a 1/1 soldier. I'd rather go fight something else. You can't fight other things, unfortunately. Are there going to be times when that comes in handy? Sure. I mean, if you really, like, if you have so many, like, I want ETB, destroy something, or fight something, whatever it is, and I have a blank deck, sure. But outside of that, yeah, I don't see this, like, replacing, like, Acidic Slime or those kinds of cards. Next up, Innkeeper's Talent. It's a class for 2 mana in green. At the beginning of combat on your turn, put a counter to our creature control level 2, which only costs 1 more to actually put that on there. Permanents you control with counters on them have ward 1. Interesting. So that's a good way to protect things. Level 3, though, an extra 4 mana right there. If you put 1 or more counters on a permanent player, put twice that many of each of those kinds of counters on that permanent player instead. That's quite nice. So again, that's like that, I mean, doubling season type effect. Essentially, at least half of that. So yeah, I mean, if you're really using this card, you probably want to really get to level 3 just because that's like where like all the value is. It is nice that little ward 1 is nice on things. So I mean, at the very least, like if you have a counters strategy or a strategy that gets counters on permanents, I say +1 counters, I should say, on permanents, then yeah, this works very well. Being able to just slowly get counters on things, also protect your things, and yes, double things up. Obviously, that is the big part of it. So yeah, I can definitely see decks that utilize that want to double things up. Yeah, utilizing this one. Moving on, Life Creed Duo, a 1/2 bat bird with flying for 2 mana in white. Whenever another creature you control enters, you gain 1 life. We've seen this quite a bit, like the Soul Sister type effect. This one is just for your creatures, though, so keep that in mind. Not everyone's creatures. If you have, like, life gain deck, yeah, this is probably just another great include. Low to the ground creature that's like, oh, okay, cool, yeah, hey, another creature enters, I gain life. You have a lot of those in play. You've got a lot of, like, whenever you gain life triggers, cool, do that as well. Next up, Longstalk Brawl, a source for a single green mana, but you can gift a tap fish, which I always love. It's like, hey, here you go, here's a fish. And they're like, why? Here's a fish. Choose target creature you control, target creature you don't control. Put a counter on the creature you control if the gift was promised. Then those creatures fight each other. Yet another just great gift. Another great fight spell. Just 1 mana fight. There's a lot of fight decks out there that absolutely just love that. Like, as many 1 mana fight spells you can give me all of them. Again, gifting a fish is not that big of a deal. If you actually need that counter, like, again, literally, like, okay, my creature's a 5/5, their creature's a 5/5. If I can just make my creature survive by giving another opponent a fish, sure, I'll do that absolutely all the time. And again, keep in mind, it doesn't have to be the opponent that you're hurting with this spell. You can gift it to another player so you can, like, make a deal. Next up, Masterful Recycling, an instant for 1 and a green, gift a card. So again, that is a bigger actual, requirement, giving someone a card versus a fish most of the time. Return target permanent card from your graveyard to your hand. If the gift was promised, instead return 2 target permanent cards to your graveyard. I mean, it seems like these, it's a regrowth type effect, but it is specific to permanence, and that really, limits these types of cards for the most part in Commander, in my opinion. If you've got, an all permanence deck, which again is ironic then if you're including an instant like this still, yeah, I mean, 2 for 2 mana is crazy good. But again, for most decks out there like Regrowth, they like that flexibility of being able to get anything back, typically. There you go, though. But if you do, you can utilize it in those kind of permanent decks, okay? Moving on, Mist Breath Elder. I love the design of this one. A 2/2 Frog Warrior for a single green mana. Beginning of your upkeep, returning another creature you control to its owner's hand. If you do, put a counter on Mist Breath Elder. Otherwise, you may return Mist Breath Elder to its owner's hand. The way this one's worded is very interesting. So if you have another creature in play, you must return it to your hand. You must. Or only one other creature. If you've got multiple creatures, you can choose whichever one you want, but you have to return a creature back to your hand. If you don't have any other creatures in play, you can choose not to bounce this. You can choose to keep it in play or bounce it back to your hand. So, this can grow throughout the game, which can be quite nice. The kind of deck that this can really go well in, though, is like a deck that likes to use and abuse ETBs of creature or cast triggers. So, being able to just have a one-mana creature that can bounce back your other creatures, again, on your upkeep to then go, okay, cool, back in my hand. Replay it. Get whatever effect it is. Draw cards, whatever. Destroy something. Cool. So being able to do that can be quite nice. Actually, I did an episode recently where I had, I want to bounce creatures back to my hand. Like, what this deck wants to do. And then all of a sudden, there's only so many just in green. Like, though, there's others in other colors as well. And they were a lot less efficient than this. So, having just a one-mana version of that's like a good amount of upside is quite nice. So I really like the design of this one. Next up, Scales of Shale. Hard to say. Instant for 3 mana in black. This spell costs once cast for each lizard you control. Cool. Target creature gets +0 and gains lifelink and destruct till turn. So, I guess if you have a bunch of lizards, that's nice. If not, this is much worse than, other ones that give indestructible for the most part, which are usually like 1 mana. The lifelink is nice too. Like, I'd say like all this together, like you'd probably pay 2 mana for it. So if you have lizard, great, you're paying 2 mana. If not, you're overpaying. Next up, Steampath Charger, a 2/1 lizard warlock. Offspring 2, costs 2 mana in red. When this creature dies with 1 name target player, seems like more of a limited card. I mean, I guess if you have like a way to populate that token quite a bit, great. If not, no. I mean, I guess, okay, like Brutaclad could consider it maybe, but there's a lot better cards to consider for Brutaclad. Moving on. Thistledown Players, a 3/3 Mouse Bard for 3 mana. When it attacks, untap target non-land permanent. Seems like a limited card for the most part. Like, there are certain commanders out there that you really want to be like, okay, I untap my commander, which has a tap ability, or, this is kind of like pseudo-vigilance, and it like can untap itself too. It can also be like pseudo-ramp too, but you are sending this into danger. It is a 3/3 for 3, but it doesn't have any like evasion. Early on, you could probably get away with it. Later on, not so much. Next on, Thought Shucker, a 1/3 rat rogue with threshold. I'm gonna read the thing first. For 1 in a blue. Now threshold for 1 in a blue. Put a counter on Thought Shucker and draw a card. Activate only if 7 or more cards in your graveyard only once. Only once. Have we seen that before? I don't know if we've seen that before. It just says only once. Not only once each turn, only once. Interesting. So, like, you just activate it, and then you can never activate it again. Huh. I guess they don't want to give you, like, a draw engine once you have threshold. Interesting. Okay, probably more of a limited card, really, like, there's not too many decks out there like, okay, I can really, like, can consistently, like, focus on, like, getting a ton of things in my graveyard, and then get a counter on this, like, pay the mana, draw a card. Cool, I did it. It's a 2/4. Cool, all right. And then, okay, I can't activate that again. I guess if you, like, blink it and that kind of stuff, then you could, but, like, it's not worth that. Okay, moving on. Treetop Sentries. 2/4 Squirrel Archer with Reach for 4 mana. Is that squirrel on the right wearing a skull? Okay. In green, enters, you may forge. If you do, draw a card. So again, entering and foraging means you're foraging, you exile 3 cards from graveyard to sacrifice a food. Seems pretty specific. 4 mana is quite a bunch just for that. I mean, it's basically like, what's the spider? The old school spider. It's a 2/4 for 4 with reach. This one is that plus potentially draw. So there you go. Next up, the card of the hour, the card of the day, the card maybe of all spoiler season, Vren the Restless. I love this design. 3/4 Rat Rogue for 4 mana in Dimir. For some reason has Ward 2. Wizards, just throwing Ward 2 on things. That's not going to take away my fun of this card, though. I guess I shouldn't just throw Ward under the bus right now. It's needed sometimes, but they overused it, but okay. If a creature opponent controls would die, exile it instead. So already right there, you are shutting down a lot of types of strategies out there that really take advantage of creatures when they die. Like, Aristocrat style strategies, which is a very popular type of strategy. All of a sudden, no, those creatures are not dying. They do not hit the graveyard. They're just exiled instead. And of course, there's a benefit to that for you. At the beginning of each end step, not just your own, each end step, Create X 1/1 black rat creature tokens. With this, creature gets ++1 for each other rat you control, where X is the number of creatures your opponents controlled that were exiled this turn. So on every single end step, not just your own, you get this trigger. If creatures die that your opponents control, they go away permanently. They get exiled, and then you're like, okay, cool. I get that many more rats that get that much bigger based on the number of rats that are in play. Yeah, that's awesome. That's fantastic. That is just a combination of a lot of old cards, it seems like, and in a very, very cool way, where it's like, yeah, let's grow a rat army that just becomes this giant swarm that is unstoppable, while also shutting my opponent's shenanigans down. On top of that, keep in mind, it's specifically worded, and it doesn't even mean that your opponent's creatures have to die for this to actually occur, because it does say where X is the number of creatures your opponents controlled that were exiled this turn, meaning that one player over there that is playing their blink deck and like, look at all the value I'm getting, blink, 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 and then you're like, okay, I get that many rats, thank you, that are all massive, like 2020s, because you blink so many times. And they're like, wow, no! Yeah, that's probably what's gonna happen. That's exactly what's gonna happen. So yeah, this is a commander that can shut down and really compete against certain strategies just by being in play, and also rewards you for doing something that you probably should be doing anyways, and is controlling the board, destroying your opponent's creatures to actually make sure that your army is safe. Your army is going to be growing while you're doing that, so get rid of your opponent's creatures, grow a giant rat army that gets bigger and bigger and bigger, use rat synergies. I mean, this is like okay, there are really good monocolor, and no offense to anyone that's running the, multicolor rat commanders out there, but there are really good monocolor and black rat commanders. That being said, we really haven't had one that's like good outside of that. We haven't had one that lets you explore this space a little bit outside of mono black. And I think we finally have that in a really, really cool way. And again, one that brings in just like some nostalgia from Magic with like, okay, like a swarm of rats. There's a couple of like swarm of rats cards essentially. They're like Relentless rats, like for example, like bigger with all the Relentless rats in play. Like that kind of concept and bring it to the commander. I love it. Absolutely love it. So yeah, this is a commander that I think has a lot of potential, can be quite popular, could be quite devastating against certain decks, and I'm very excited about it. If you're excited about it as well, make sure you check out that card list link in the description below. Going to be talking about these cards that work really well with it. Let's jump into the budget buys and the pricier picks. First up with the budget buys, we've got Piper of the Swarm. Not a rat itself, but you'll see. So, rats you control have menace. That's huge. So now your giant rats that get bigger with all the rats in play are harder to block. Your opponents have to team block a rat to actually just block it again. Can only be blocked by 2 or more creatures. So all of a sudden, yeah, you're going to be having some rats get through. On top of that, you can pay 1 and a black to tap and create a 1/1 black rat creature token. Now that one is just a 1/1. It will not grow with the rest of your army, but it does grow your army. So that can also just be like a combat trick as well, where you're like, okay, I swing with these. Your opponent's like, okay, I block. Okay, good. I'm taking out that rat, whatever. And then you're like, okay, I activate. I make another rat. These rats got bigger. Cool. On top of that, you can pay 4 mana and tap and sacrifice 3 rats to gain control of target creature. You're not going to have a problem just decimating, your opponents with a lot of rats and making a ton of rats. And then all of a sudden you can sacrifice some rats to steal your opponent's best creatures. Yeah, that's absolutely fantastic. Next up, Carmonix the Rat King. Maybe not the king anymore with this brand new commander. 3/3 Phyrexian Rat for 3 mana in black, Toxic 1. Other rats you control have Toxic 1. So if you're not going to take your opponents out, with your massive amounts of damage that you can do, you can just take them out with Infect too. Not Infect, I always say that. Poison counters as well. Also, when it enters the battlefield, look at the top 5 cards of your library, reveal any number of rat cards from among them. Reveal cards into your hand, but the rest bottom of your library in random order. So also some rat card advantage there as well. Ogre Slumlord, yes, please. Whenever another non-token creature dies, you may create a 1/1 black rat creature token. Rats you control have Death Touch. Now, keep in mind, this is a kind of, not combo. It's not a combo. It's synergistic, but also anti-synergy for you as well at the exact same time, because unfortunately, again, your commander says, hey, opponent's creatures die, they're exiled, which means that you're not getting death triggers for this as well, which would give you creatures if your opponent's creatures die. That being said, it still replaces your non-token creatures when they die, number 1. Number 2, if your commander's not in play, then this still applies and grows your rat army, which is nice. But also, and perhaps an amazing thing as well, rats you control have Death Touch. Yeah, giving your creatures Death Touch is huge, so if you just have a tiny little 1/1 rat or a giant rat, all of them can take anything out essentially. So yeah, this can help you out in a lot of ways, and yeah, just a great card for a deck like this. Next up, Pack Rat. This is a terror of Standard years and years and years ago. I remember when I was playing that. Oh my goodness. Playing against it, I should say. I was not playing mono black. Star Rat for 2 mana. And I was playing Boggles in Standard. It was fun. Glade Cover Scout, I love you. Power Touch each equal to the number of rats you control. Pay 3 mana essentially. Discard a card. Create a token's copy of Pack Rat. This basically, again, is going to benefit based on how many rats you have in play. So yeah, just make a ton of rats with your commander throughout the game. This gets bigger. And also, yeah, it's impossible for everyone to like attack you in this in play. And you've got mana open and cards in your hand. You're like, oh, okay, you attack. Yeah, I guess I'll pay 3 and discard a card and make a 15/15. Block your creature. Goodbye. Thank you. Make me another rat. Yay! Yeah, this is pretty gross. So yeah, if you can build up a lot of card advantage, which you definitely can in this color, you are able to really use and abuse this, make a massive army with this too. Next up, in mono black, you've got, and mono black, I mean, you're in Dimir, but yeah, mono black's what you're going to be using most of your removal from in this. You've got a lot of amazing removal. Innocent Blood, very simple, very effective. A sorcery for a single black mana. Each player sacrifices a creature. So you just pay 1 mana. Every player sacrifices a creature. Goodbye. I got rid of 3 of my opponent's creatures, and all of a sudden I'm making 3 more rats. Which, even if I have no other things in play, essentially, again, have an absurd amount of power already based on the number of rats that I control. So again, making more rats also allows you to have more creature fodder to sacrifice. So let's move things up a little bit. Barter and Blood. Each player sacrifices 2 creatures for 4 mana. So again, that is, well, oh no, I lost 2 creatures. Whatever, don't care about that. I got creature fodder. It's fine. You lose 2, you lose 2, so that's 6 creatures in total. That's 6 more rats I'm getting into play. That is going to be 6 more power and 6 more toughness for all the rats I have as well, just for paying for mana and making everyone sacrifice creatures, and also just decimating my opponent's boards. Speaking of which, Crippling Fear. Choose a creature type. Creatures that aren't the chosen type get -3/-3 until end of turn. This is one that can be great as kind of like a mini board wipe against your opponent's creatures that are not rats, which is pretty much all of them most likely. So yeah, being able to take out your opponent's creatures that are low to the ground can be quite nice with this. Next up, another kind of more specific board wipe, Invasion of Fioria. When it enters the battlefield, choose 1 or both. Destroy all legendary creatures, destroy all non-legendary creatures. If you just need to wipe the board and want to keep your commander around, be like, okay, goodbye all non-legendaries. Get rid of everything. And all of a sudden, again, you're replacing all your opponent's creatures with rats for you. It also can flip over when you take it out into Marche's Resolute Monarch. 3/6 Death Touch, Menace Death Touch. Attacks, remove all counters with the 1 target permanent. At the beginning of your upkeep, if you haven't dealt combat damage since your last turn, you draw a card, lose 1 life. So some potential card advantage from there as well. Butcher Malakir, punishing. Again, when you have a bunch of creature fodder, which you will, 5/4 Flying Vampire Warrior, that costs 7 mana, can take advantage of that. Whenever another creature controlled dies, each opponent sacrifices a creature. So if you go down something, your opponents go down something, and then you go back up some things with some more rats. Necromantic Selection. Speaking of going up things, destroy all creatures and return a creature card put in your graveyard this way to the battlefield under your control. It's a black zombie, destroy other colors and types. Exile this. Basically, just say, oh, okay, I destroy everything. Okay, cool. All your creatures exiled. Great, good. I bring my commander back as a zombie. Okay, we go to the end step. How many creatures did you all have that got destroyed and exiled? Okay, 10? Sweet. I make 10 rats. Your boards are gone. Yay! It's like a one-sided board wipe that just resets your rats. It's quite fantastic with a commander like this. Moving on to the pricier picks. Again, cards outside of my budget, but might be within yours. Regardless, all these cards are in that card list link in the description below. Keep that in mind. Roaming Throne. Yeah, this card's going to come up quite a bit since it came out. It's really good. 4/4 with Ward 2, because it needed that, Wizards. Golem for 4. Enter battlefield, choose a creature type, rat. It's the chosen type, just other types. But a triggered ability to be chosen of another creature you control, the chosen type triggers additional time. This can help you out in a couple ways, but mainly it helps with your commander. It's like, okay, go to the end step trigger, do that twice. So twice as many rats that you would have had. Yay! Again, every single turn. Next up, speaking of a trigger, Ashcoat of the Shadow Swarm. This is $37. Wow. 3/4 Rat Warrior for 4 mana. I guess it was in Jumpstart, so not as big of supply, I guess. For 4 mana in black. Whenever it attacks or blocks other rats you control, get +X until after X the number of rats you control. So basically, double up those rats' power and toughness because they already are benefited based on the number of rats that are in play. At the beginning of your end step, you may mill 4 cards. If you do, return up to 2 rat creature cards from your grave to your hand. So do that. Get some extra card value if you have a good amount of rats in your deck. Kindred Discovery, of course. Again, being in blue gives you access to certain cards that I'm going to be highlighting. This is a really good one, obviously, for tribal decks out there. So yeah, all the other rat commanders out there that are mono black are very jealous that they can't utilize this. As enters the battlefield, choose a creature type. Whenever a creature you control the chosen type enters the battlefield or attacks, draw a card. You're going to have a crazy amount of rats. Just an absolutely crazy amount of rats. So, yeah, go crazy. Draw a bunch of cards. Again, on the end step, you make all those rats, draw cards. When you attack, draw cards. You're going to have so many cards, your head's going to spin. Next up, Kindred Dominance. Yeah, this is great as well. Choose a creature type, then draw creatures that aren't the chosen type. Again, one-sided board wipe. Basically, your opponents are not going to have any rats, most likely. They might have a changeling, whatever. All their creatures are gone. All your creatures are fine. You get even more rats. What's not to love about that? Speaking of which, in Garrick's Wake, Wizards reprinted. It's outside of my budget now, please. Sorcery for 9 mana and black. Destroy creatures you don't control. All planeswalkers. You don't control a one-sided board wipe. That is absolutely fantastic. And let's get mean. Grave Pact. Yeah, this is basically Butcher of Malik here. So is Dictator Erebos. But basically, whenever a creature control dies, each other player sacrifices a creature. Yeah, that is brutal. That is crazy. And again, every single time you're doing that, you're like, oh yeah, your creatures get exiled. I make 3 more rats. Yay, good for me. Good for me. So yeah, 1 creature equals 3 for you. No mercy. Enchantment for 4 mana. Whenever a creature deals damage to you, destroy it. A very aptly named card. Hey, opponents. I'm going to be really aggressive with this deck, okay? I'm going to swing my giant rats at you with no abandon. I'm just going to keep going. I'm just going to go at you and come on, bring it. Swing at me. Go ahead. Hit me. You hit me, your creature goes away, and I make a rat. Goodbye. Yeah, it's absolutely just a fun time for you. But now this episode is coming to a close. Let me know what your thoughts are on Vren the Relentless in the comments below. I mean, this is the card that, again, you're just waiting all day. You're like refreshing, refresh, 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 refresh. Anyone else know that feeling as well? But yeah, refresh, refresh. Oh my gosh! Yes! Where's this penalty? Finally, a rat commander in more than just mono black that actually does some crazy, awesome, amazing things. And I'm not trying to downplay the other, ones, but, those aren't really like rat tribal for the most part. But this is just like, hey, you know what? Let's make everything into Relentless rats. Absolutely cool. So yeah, decimate your opponents. Destroy them with your own cards in a way by being like, your creature's gone. Now it's a rat. Yay, it's mine. Goodbye, everyone. And also having Ward 2 for some reason. Regardless, a really exciting commander. If you are excited about like I am, make sure you check out that card list link in the description below. Also, if you haven't seen it yet, make sure you check out my link to my Kickstarter that I'm going to be running at some point in the near future. It's a card game that I actually built myself, and I'm really excited about it, called 7 Secret Supervillains. Make sure you check it out. Thank you again. And of course, as always, stay tuned to the channel for even more exciting quick takes and spoilers. And as always, thanks again, and have a good one. This show and episodes like this one are possible thanks to viewers like you. If you're looking for an easy way to help support this show, make sure that you like, share, and subscribe. Also, hit that bell notification icon so you don't miss any new episodes. You can also go check out our playmats and other merchandise at thecommandersquarters.com. We also have a ton of brand new t-shirt designs in stock, so make sure you check out those as well. Another easy way to support this show is with our TCG Player affiliate links. So whether you're buying a deck or individual cards, you can use this general link right here or one in the description. And the final way that you can support this show is by supporting us directly by becoming a patron. There are many benefits to being a patron, and I truly couldn't do this without all of their support.